Hello everyone, and welcome to today's festive Google Hangout, where we'll be looking at seasonal words with the corpus and dictionaries teams. So I'd just like to start by having introductions from our teams. So I'll just hand over to them. Should be able to see them on the screen now. Okay.
Hi there, I'm Laura Grimes, and this is my colleague Sarah Grieves, and we both work on the language research team, which is based in the ELT department of Cambridge University Press. And we do language research to inform all kinds of different CUP publications, from dictionaries to grammar guides to textbooks and teacher development materials too. And we do this research using what we call a corpus. Sarah's going to explain what a corpus is.
Yeah, so a corpus is basically a massive collection of language stored electronically that you can search. And the corpus that we use is called the Cambridge English Corpus. It's multi-millions of words from all different sources. So we've got spoken English, written English from all around the world. And we use this corpus to find out things like which words commonly appear together, which words are becoming more popular, which words are going out of fashion, which words and phrases are useful for people learning English.
I'm Dom Glennon. I'm a reference systems manager here. Work on Cambridge dictionaries along with Helen Freeman here. My role is mainly on the technical side, overseeing updates to Cambridge dictionaries online, and monitoring and analysing the traffic, particularly what people are searching.
And I'm the commissioning editor for Cambridge Dictionaries, so I manage the content that goes online. We're constantly updating the dictionary content, and we use the corpus to inform what we put in the dictionary. So to provide example sentences that contain collocations, and to give people natural sounding examples to help them use English naturally and well.
Make sure the dictionaries are always up to date.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll start with our first question, which is from Zuza Kalmar, who asks, can you tell us more about the tradition of crackers and cracking at Christmas, please?
So crackers traditionally are pulled around the Christmas dinner table. So they, if you should hopefully be seeing a link in the comments. So this link will take you to the dictionary page for the entry for cracker. And you'll see that there are a few meanings that the word cracker has. And the second meaning describes what we traditionally use at Christmas. So it's a paper tube with toys or sweets, and the tradition is to sit around the table and pull a cracker with your relative or friend, and it's a form of celebration. And you can see on the entry page we've got example sentences, and the words in bold show collocations that we commonly use with the word cracker. You might also see at the side there's a reference to bonbon, which is an Australian English word for cracker. So there are different words for the same thing. And also underneath the entry, there's a link to a festive blog that you might find interesting. It contains lots of vocabulary around Christmas and celebrating this festive time of year.
Yes, I think it's worth pointing out as well, there is no tradition of cracking at Christmas.
Yes.
You don't crack a cracker, you pull a cracker.
Okay, so you pull a cracker, it's not cracking as a...
Yeah.
No.
Time to start cracking.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question now, which is from Giovanna Campos. And Giovanna asks, is there any particular new slang vocabulary related to Christmas or the New Year? So this is one, I think, for our corpus team.
Yeah, so we had a look for this, and there isn't too much kind of new festive slang actually coming in. A few things we did notice were to do with abbreviations of words, so things like Prezi, Xmas, Crimble, so shortening sort of traditional Christmas words. We notice this a lot in British English. It seems to be a particular feature of British English as opposed to American English. And we noticed it a lot in particular in e-language, so things like texts, tweets, emails, as opposed to things like longer articles or spoken English. We don't often say Xmas, but quite often if people are writing a text about Christmas, they'll use Xmas instead. So it's all to do with saving space, saving time if you're texting. This seems to be the pattern that we're noticing. And certainly for Xmas and Crimbo, there's kind of accepted ways of spelling these words. But for Prezi, there was a bit of variation. So some people spell it P-R-E-S-S-I-E, and some people spell it P-R-E-Z-Z-I-E. So a few interesting things there to do with shortening words.
Okay, thanks. We'll move on to our next question now, which is from Keith Rossborough, who asks, why do we say Boxing Day?
So Boxing Day is the day after Christmas. In the UK and other countries, it's normally a public holiday. And the reason that we call it Boxing Day dates back to the mid-1800s, I think. And it's when employers gave their employees presents in the form of Christmas boxes. So the word boxing comes from the form that the present came in. And we could probably share a link to the entry for Boxing Day on Cambridge Dictionaries online. So you'll see at that entry there's a definition, and then just below it, if you're a non-native speaker, you can see different translations of the word Boxing Day, so you can find the translation of the term in your own language.
Okay, thanks. Just to give you some warning of some of the questions that we're going to be coming up with in a minute or two that have come in already. So Imogen has asked, how's the way we talk about Christmas changed over the last 20 years? And Olivia's asked whether there are any noticeable differences between American Christmases and British Christmases. I'm guessing that's particularly in terms of usage of vocabulary. Something. Okay, which of those would you like to start with?
Oh, we can definitely have a look at how the way we talk about Christmas has changed. That's something that's actually really useful and kind of easy to do using a corpus, because what we can do is we can split our corpus into language used in one particular period and compare that to language used in a different period. So what we can do to answer this question is look at the way that we talked about Christmas in the 90s and the way that we talked about Christmas kind of more recently in the noughties. And if we do that, we actually find some really interesting things. We've seen a lot of new vocabulary popping in related to partying. So we've got party, feast, frolics, bash. Bash is a kind of colloquial word for a party. Knees up, which is another nice kind of colloquial word for a party too. And we've also got the word hangover, which is the horrible feeling you get after you've had a bit too much to drink. And we didn't see hangovers being talked about quite so much in relation to Christmas kind of in the past. Don't know how worrying that is. We also see lots of new words popping in to do with shopping and buying things and kind of the commercial side of Christmas. So things like the Christmas sales is a really common, the Christmas sales is a really common collocation. Spend, that could be, spend could be related to spending money, or it might be spending time. So it might be that you're spending time with your family or your friends over Christmas. We also see retailers, shoppers, and trading mentioned as well. So it's interesting to see how kind of the world of Christmas is changing and see those changes reflected in the language. Yeah, definitely.
I'm just having a little quick look now for the differences between British and American language. One thing that I've spotted straight away is that happy holidays is an expression that you don't really get so much in British English, but it's very common in American English. So you would say happy holidays to someone is like a Christmas greeting. On the other hand, Happy Christmas isn't really used very much in American English. That's a much more British way of wishing someone kind of a nice Christmas. Just trying to think if there's any other sort of things to talk about with British and American Christmases. I don't know if there's anything on the blog about differences.
We don't have anything specifically on the differences, but we've had a recent post about Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and those are obviously terms that originated in America because they are around the shopping that happens around Thanksgiving, and that's come over here to the UK. So we now use Black Friday and Cyber Monday here in the UK. So that's just another thing that we've got in the dictionary, and if something's specifically American or specifically UK English, we mark it in the dictionary with a region label. But you'll see in the dictionary that Black Friday has no region label because it's now used in the UK and the US.
Another interesting thing about Black Friday, actually, is if you look at the distribution of the uses of Black Friday in the corpus, we see it used quite a lot in written media, so in newspapers, but also in kind of broadcast media like the radio, which is interesting. Perhaps it's something that's kind of pushed more by the media than something that we talk about informally with friends. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Something else nice I've just spotted to do with kind of Britain and America and the differences. You'll notice we've got some festive tinsel around. Tinsel is actually 3 times as commonly spoken about in Britain as in America. So if there's any of you tuning in from America, let us know whether tinsel is used much in America. Maybe it's a very British thing, I'm not sure.
Okay, so moving on and following on from this discussion we've been having about the difference between sort of British and American Christmas vocabulary. Obviously, we have the Season's Greetings project going on at the moment, looking at vocabulary around the world relating to the festive season. Are there any particularly interesting things that have come up out of that? Any particular words that are trending at the moment in countries that you wouldn't expect, or is that something we should come back to in a minute or two?
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about sort of words that are becoming more popular. It's interesting to look at some words that have dropped out of usage relating to Christmas. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's interesting to see that some of the words that still appear kind of at the top of the list for both for collocations from the 90s and from more recently. We've got things like Merry Christmas is really high up, and things like Christmas Day. We still have to talk a lot about Christmas Day. It's kind of focal point, big build up towards Christmas Day. Christmas tree is still really heavily talked about. So there are some things that just don't seem to change. Christmas Eve as well is high up in both lists. What else have we got? We don't talk about Christmas pudding as much as we used to, which is interesting. It's quite a traditional element of Christmas, I think, isn't it? Sarah, did you tell me about what was the mince pie versus pudding?
Yeah, I want to see whether mince pies are more popular than Christmas cake, and yes, they are about twice as commonly talked about. So maybe taste changing away from pudding and cake towards mince pies. Yeah.
We like to talk about decoration at Christmas as well. We like to talk about it more in the past, but we still talk about it a fair amount. It's a big part of the build-up, I think, towards Christmas.
Yeah. One of the words that seems to be a bit less frequent now is pantomime. Maybe, again, it's a very traditional way of celebrating Christmas, to go to a pantomime with your family. So maybe this is just something that we aren't doing as much, finding other ways of celebrating.
And was pantomime very much a British Christmas word, or was it more?
Yeah, I suspect so, yeah. As far as I know, it's a very British tradition, so I'd be surprised if it's widely just kind of talked about.
So would maybe one of the dictionaries team like to tell us a little bit about pantomime, just based on the dictionary definition for it?
So It doesn't have a region label, so I think it's widely used globally, but there's the UK English informal word for pantomime, which is panto. So that's a nice informal word. But in the definition, it specifically states in Britain. So in Britain, it's a funny musical play. So it's obviously the British tradition that happens around Christmas time.
Yeah, I just double checked, and it's about 7 times as common in British English as you would expect.
Brilliant. Thanks. So, Dom, I know that you take a great interest in sort of spikes in words that search for on the dictionary across the year, and we've seen that in Cambridge University Press's Cambridge Dictionary's People's Word of the Year being austerity this year. But on a happier note, can you tell us a little, please, about the words that are being searched for on CDO each Christmas?
Yeah, we always notice particular increase in the searches for certain words around the Christmas theme around this time of year. So particularly there's some of the decorations like tinsel and bauble, we mentioned before. Solstice is an interesting one, maybe looking for the more traditional side of Christmas. Wreath as well, mistletoe, merry, and the more the merrier. And this is quite a nice one, tis, as in tis the season to be jolly. A few others, Scrooge, postprandial, a nice one, meaning following dinner. Maybe you'll do some postprandial cracking. And then a few related to New Year as well, like New Year's resolution, prosperous, which is something to wish on a Christmas card, prosperous New Year.
Okay, thanks. I'm also wondering about sort of abbreviations being used more over Christmas, abbreviations for particular words. So we had, I think you mentioned, Sarah, that Christmas was being, Xmas was being written but not spoken.
Yeah, not so much.
Are there any more examples of that? Any more? Shall I come back to you in a moment?
Yeah, give me a second. Yes. I'll see what I can do.
Alistair, interesting, you mentioned British and American differences. I had a quick look, and in Britain, we talk a lot about Father Christmas, whereas in American English, actually, Santa is hugely more common. It's about 3 or 4 times as common as it is to talk about Santa than it is to talk about Father Christmas. And they don't seem to talk about Father Christmas very much at all in American English.
And have you noticed Santa coming more into British than it used to be?
Because in the US, they also use Kris Kringle, definitely. Yeah. But I think, for Christmas, I think it's mainly used in the UK.
And you can see it's gaining ground.
Okay, so what you can see on screen at the moment are our dictionaries and corpus teams accessing databases and doing live research on air.
Oh, it's interesting. So so Xmas was one that wasn't very much used in spoken English. It's normally written down, but Prezi is actually kind of twice as common in spoken English as it is in written English. So maybe that's one. And it's not so much about saving characters or texting quickly. It's more about kind of how it sounds. So people are actually saying that out loud. Again, it's a very, very British English piece of vocabulary, Prezi. Just looking at which kind of years this has been used, it does seem to be on the rise. Seems to be getting more common, certainly over the last 3 years. So this is maybe one to watch out for, see if it becomes more common over the kind of coming years.
Okay, thanks. We've got another question now, which is about the food of Christmas. One particularly, I guess, for the corpus team. Have you seen any changes relating to the words related to foods that are used around Christmas?
I think certain foods are common kind of 20 years ago and now. So turkey is still a very popular Christmas dish. We mentioned before that pudding seems to be kind of a bit less popular than it was.
So we had a look overall, at kind of foods that are mentioned kind of in the whole corpus that kind of fit Christmassy, and yeah, people much prefer mince pies to a Christmas cake. There's also mashed potato and roast potato, wasn't there?
Yeah, mashed potato being a lot more common than roast potato, interestingly. I quite like roast potato myself, but there you go. Yeah.
We're actually running a really interesting project at the moment where we're collecting samples of spoken British English from members of the public. And we've done some kind of very preliminary sort of research projects using the data that we've collected so far. And we did have a look at some of the food, some of the ways that people talk about food and food that's kind of being talked about more or less than it used to be. And I think there's probably examples of that online. I'll see if I can find the research that we did. I think we blogged about it.
Yeah.
Things like gravy. I think people talk about, can you remember if it's more or less than they used to?
Yeah. I mean, certainly drinks. Last Christmas we had a look at what drinks people were talking about, and sherry's way less popular than it used to be. Gin, really on the gin's very popular.
Vodka's popular.
Vodka's popular, yeah. But perhaps unsurprisingly.
Moving to the heavy spirit.
Yeah, exactly. But pleasingly, the most popular drinks that was talked about in Britain in the 1990s and now is the same drink.
Tea.
Yeah. Still the most popular drink, so it's encouraging.
We love talking about cake as well.
So yeah, it's really very
high.
popular, yeah. Actually, I'll look for Christmas cake and see if that's still.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, Laura, you were talking about that being part of a research project that's going on at the moment with you're seeking input from people. Are you still looking for people to get involved with that?
We are actually. In fact, we've got a website. If you go to languageresearch.cambridge.org, we've got various different projects. Because our corpus is kind of ever growing, we're constantly adding new language to it to make sure that the language we put in our dictionaries and the language that we teach in our course books is really up to date and authentic and reflects how English is really used all over the world today. So we're constantly adding to our corpus. And on our website, the Language and Pedagogy Research website, you can see various different projects and various different ways that you can get involved, whether English is your first language, whether you're from Britain or America, or whether English is a language that you're learning at the moment. There are lots of different ways that you can get involved. So have a look on the website and get in touch with us through there if you're interested.
Thank you. So I think we've got time for maybe a couple more questions. So if you're watching this and have a question, please do type it into the Q&A section on the right-hand side, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. But got a question. Just my Cyrillic is not terribly good, but the surname is Krikova. So we have a question. What's the best Christmas present for you? Maybe linguistically, or just what you're looking forward to for Christmas? Obviously, a copy of the Cambridge Business English Dictionary or English Grammar Today, as you can see on screen. Anything else?
If I didn't already own Christmas books, honestly, that's what I'd request. I do love getting books for Christmas, so actually, I never get tired of getting books at Christmas.
Books about language.
Books about language, books like novels. I like a good novel.
No, yeah, me too. So, I'm very predictable, yeah. But I'm easy to buy for. Just a good book, and I'm happy.
Or chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, chocolate's high on my list. Yeah.
New Christmas
Chocolate
chocolate.
down well.
And are we seeing any changes in collocations with present? To spring that on you there,
Yeah.
just to
We had
get me.
a look, didn't we? It's difficult for us to see in the corpus the kind of things that people give as a present. It's hard to find information. Let's have a quick look and see. But we did spot something interesting about who gives presents and who receives presents. Verbs that collocate with present, unwrap and wrap and exchange, which is quite sweet, I think. And open presents, buy presents. We tend to get presents from, in the corpus, suitors, boyfriends, husbands, wife, friend, parents. It's interesting that it's all males at the top of the list. Maybe you should always give more presents than girls.
And have a look for gifts as well. So that's obviously another word for present. And a few nice things that we do with gifts. We bestow gifts, accept gifts, exchange gifts, wrap gifts. So a few lovely collocations there.
We've got last minute present as well coming up on the list of collocations. I think I'm going to be doing a bit of last minute present buying.
Yeah.
It's Christmas.
I thought that was you doing the old thing.
No, apparently not.
Okay, well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. But thank you very much, everyone who sent in questions. And thank you so much to our wonderful dictionaries and corpus team who've been sitting here answering questions, doing live research for us. And have a lovely festive season yourselves. And have a lovely festive season, Christmas, Hanukkah, anything for yourselves for the next few weeks. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll stop there.